When Mountbatten arrived, it was not wholly inconceivable that a settlement on the cabinet mission's terms might still be secured. There was very little Jinnah could do, however. He needed a settlement at the center on the basis of Pakistan consisting of undivided Punjab and Bengal. The two-nation theory with which Jinnah had hoped to get the League's share of power at the center was a sword which was now cutting his Pakistan down to size. Then there was the issue of division of the army by June 1948. Pressing almost the last lever he possessed, Jinnah now proposed that it was impossible actually to divide the army by June 1948. The British should make it clear immediately that the army would be divided, settle the basis for its division, and perhaps leave its implementation until later. The unavoidable prospect of losing much of the army if they did not come to terms might have persuaded the Congress leaders to shift from their uncompromising stance. Jinnah's hope was that this way all intercommunal feeling would subside and Hindustan and Pakistan would be able to come together and work out the details. Jinnah deliberately left it a tantalizingly open question whether the army would actually need to be divided at the end of the day. The implication was that if the terms were right, India's army might always march shoulder to shoulder to discipline the common enemies of the Congress and the League beyond the subcontinent's borders. Jinnah expressed his opinion that Pakistan and Hindustan would have to make a deal since Pakistan and Hindustan would not be able to stand alone against a powerful aggressor. Here was the narrow and stony path by which Jinnah hoped to arrive at the ultimate goal of parity in an all-India arrangement by achieving parity over external defense. Mountbatten reported that this search for parity had put Jinnah into the ridiculous position in which he looked as if he might end up not only with the horribly mutilated Pakistan, but also still have to accept common arrangements with Hindustan at the center. If Mountbatten had stated that Jinnah's entire strategy was aimed at securing such common arrangements and that Jinnah was prepared to go to any length to achieve them, he would have been nearer the mark. As the Viceroy himself explained, the real difference of course lies in the fact that in the former case, that is a truncated but sovereign Pakistan, there would be parity at the center and the League would not be outvoted. But it shows what value the League sets on parity, since to obtain it, they are prepared to sacrifice the richest plums of Pakistan. Congress, seeing the entire cake within its grasp, was not ready to rest content with the richest plums. As Patel laid down in a few choice words, Congress had reached the maximum limit of their concessions. It would not give League parity in the interim government even if this brought Jinnah in. If the League was not ready to accept the mission's proposals without further ado and without safeguards, then quite simply the Congress desired partition. Congress further underscored this with its first report of the Union Powers Committee of the Constituent Assembly. By widely interpreting three common subjects, the report effectively converted the Union Centre into something very different from what the mission had intended. The Viceroy himself admitted that Jinnah had a point. Mr. Jinnah might be right in his belief that the Congress had no intention of working the mission plan fairly. Mr. Jinnah's fears had some foundation. Ultimately, Punjab and Bengal were partitioned. Jinnah tried till very late in the day to keep the two provinces united. In Bengal, Sohrawardy had long seen the implications of partition. He attempted a coalition ministry with Congress, but the Congress High Command endorsed Hindu Mahasabha's demand for partition. This is when Sohrawardy mooted the idea of an independent, undivided Bengal. On 26 April 1947, Jinnah told Mountbatten that he would be delighted if Bengal could remain united even if this meant it would have to stay out of Pakistan. What is the use of Bengal without Calcutta? They had better remain united and independent. I'm sure that they would be on friendly terms with us. Nehru rejected the idea of an independent Bengal on 27 May even after Mountbatten had persuaded London to make an exception for Bengal and to allow it to become an independent dominion. Once partitioned, there was no question of giving dominion status to East Bengal, which would now have the unenviable choice of either joining Hindustan or even more distant Pakistan. As it turned out, East Bengal became East Pakistan. The merit of this book is that Dr. Jalal lays out a convincing roadmap which Jinnah and the League followed and which ultimately led to the formation of an independent and sovereign but ultimately truncated Pakistan. It is important to appreciate the nuance of her argument, which is often overlooked by her critics. Dr. Jalal's argument is that Jinnah did not want partition. Her argument is decidedly not that Jinnah did not want Pakistan. By this, it is not simply that Jinnah did not want partition of Punjab and Bengal, but rather that the very idea of Pakistan was not predicated on the partition of India. Jinnah's maximum demand had been a Pakistan federation comprising the Muslim majority provinces, which would then negotiate an all India center with the Hindustan Federation, where the two entities would have parity and equal say. This raises the question as to why this demand for parity at the center should commend itself to so ardent an Indian nationalist as Jinnah had been in the first half of his political career. Jinnah's efforts up till 1937 were aimed at coming to an arrangement with the Congress to put up a united front against the British rulers. But by 1937, all his efforts were frustrated primarily because he was considered too much of a lightweight when it came to Muslims, and the elections of 1937 confirmed that Jinnah and the Muslim League had very little support in the Muslim majority areas. The reason why Jinnah had to espouse this demand was because of what Dr. Jalal calls the particularism of Muslim majority provinces. Muslim majority provinces had long feared a Hindu-dominated center, and the Muslims in minority provinces had their own set of grievances and fears about the Hindu majority. Jinnah, as their wakil, had to come up with a demand that would bring Muslims in both Muslim majority and minority provinces on one platform and then marshal them to negotiate a constitution with the Hindu majority, which would allow the Muslim minority a share of power in post-independence India. The Lahore Resolution provided such a platform. To do this, Jinnah had to assume the role of the sole spokesman and have a solid body of Muslim public opinion behind him. Clothed in representative status, Jinnah would meet his former Congress colleagues as an equal when it came to settling the question of the future Indian constitution. To appeal to the maximum number of Muslims, Jinnah had to leave the demand imprecise, allowing several sets of his constituents to make what they wish of the demand. Therefore, he was reticent about what Pakistan was and what it meant. Ultimately, the fact that he accepted the cabinet mission plan, which had explicitly ruled out an independent and sovereign Pakistan, shows that he was willing to negotiate till the very end. The cabinet mission plan gave Jinnah what he wanted: sufficiently autonomous Muslim majority provinces grouped together behind the League at an all-India center. This was the price for a united India that Congress was unwilling to pay. For its own reasons, Congress leadership saw the scheme as worse than partition. Ultimately, it is hard to escape Dr. Jalal's conclusion that it was Congress that insisted on partition and it was Jinnah who was against partition. Those who criticize this conclusion do so by conflating the principle of Pakistan with partition. Jinnah was fighting for the principle of Pakistan and not the partition of India. Obviously, this conclusion does not sit well with Pakistani and Indian nationalist mythologies constructed over time. But for Pakistanis, the distinction is crucial and it only helps clear the cobwebs of ideological confusion that the Pakistani state finds itself in right from the beginning.